Back after the break on Eastern Newsbeat, brought to you by Era TV. I'm still at Kunara Community House in Upper Ferntree Gully. I'm speaking now to the Minister for Higher Education and Skills, Minister Nick Wakeling, and you're also the member for Knox.
That's right. So one of the state members here in Knox, member for Ferntree Gully, but pleased to be here today in my capacity as the Minister to provide this important funding announcement of $149,000 for Kunara Community House. And this is part of a range of grants that we've recently announced as what's called the Capacity and Innovation Fund, of which there were 37 successful recipients, and they will receive nearly $2.5 million in government funding. And the significance of this grant is that Kunara, in coordination with other local providers, but more importantly with regional providers, are going to utilise video technology to try to provide training opportunities for Victorians, particularly in remote parts of Victoria, to link in with courses that are operated at facilities like this at Kunara. And it's about providing opportunities for Victorians to participate in training. And we know that every opportunity that you can provide to a Victorian to train is significant, because that assists them with a greater opportunity of finding a job. And so that's the reason why we do this. That's the reason why Kunara does this, and I'm very pleased to be here today. The other thing I'll mention is that Kunara was also successful in receiving a $40,000 grant for our digital literacy program for older Victorians, and that's about teaching older Victorians how to use iPads and a whole range of other computer-based programs. And we know that the more that people are engaged, the greater the capacity they have to learn and engage with the broader community.
So the $40,000 was specifically for Kunara Community House, and the $149,000 was for the northeastern Victorian region, which includes the Melbourne metro area.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the $40,000 grant, it was a $160,000 package, of which Kunara was one of four. And again, they are doing great work here, and it's about providing a broad range of opportunities for Victorians to engage in education. And so for us as a government, we contribute upwards of $1.2 billion a year towards subsidised training, and that sees about 640,000 enrolments around the state. But it's about providing every opportunity possible, particularly for people who are disengaged from education. And as we know, whether it's because of financial situations, whether people who don't have English as a first language, there's a whole range of reasons why people disengage from education, and places like Kunara are really important to make sure we get those people back into education.
Yeah. Well, we're part of Channel 31, which is Digital 44, and there's 1,000 sort of groups involved in that who don't receive funding. How do you go about getting some funding from the government? We'd like to know the secret.
And can I say, Channel 31 is really important. I remember when you, and I remember raising this issue about trying to get you on the digital spectrum. So I remember that was an important campaign. But look, clearly there's, both at a state, federal and a local government level, there's a range of grants that are available for community groups across the state. And it's difficult to navigate the journey unless you know exactly where to go, who to ask. So certainly what I would be encouraging community groups across Victoria, but particularly in the east, is to make contact with your council to find out what council grants are available, particularly for those grants at a state or a federal level. If you don't, certainly by searching on the internet through the grants website, you can try that. But the easiest thing to probably do is make contact with your local member of parliament, state or federal member of parliament, and they will have access to a whole range of grants. And there's grants that are available for all types of community groups.
You gave us an example of how to get a grant, or who gets grants, off air earlier. So could you just mention to the people watching who it was and how they went about it?
Yeah, look, I was contacted by one of my local churches who have a car park which is utilised by their parishioners, but also by people accessing children's services, and they run playgroups and other services within that community. The challenge that group have faced is there's been people outside the church who are utilising that car park, and there's a whole range of unsavoury facets around that as well, as you could appreciate, and particularly when you're mixing with young families. So that was a concern for that group, and they came to me seeing what assistance they could possibly get. I worked with them to identify the possibility of getting a grant through a government department, and so they then applied for a grant, and they just advised me today that as a consequence of that, they were informed by the Minister that they've been successful in a $10,000 grant, which will help them with, to alleviate that car parking problem, with a gate and other issues. So what it's really doing is identifying a problem, but trying to come up with a local solution. And there's grants available for a whole range of programs, and that's just one example.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I understand that the AFL, even, they're a highly commercial organisation. They get grants from the government as well.
Well, they do. I mean, and there's lots of big organisations like the AFL that apply for grants and are successful. I mean, the most important thing I'd be saying to community organisations are that governments, federal, state and local, provides a whole range of funding for grants. The money is there for organisations, particularly small community groups, to access. And I tell everyone, if you're not in there asking, somebody else will, and someone else will get the money. And just like we've seen today, that it takes a bit of work to apply for the grants, obviously, and I commend the group here for the work they've done. But as we've seen, their work has delivered a $149,000 grant for this group. And so I would be certainly encouraging all organisations, particularly out in this area where I represent and I live, make sure you're out there applying, because it's imperative that we get as many grants as possible, because what that does is improves the community, not just the organisation, but provides benefit for our community.
Yeah. So any small group, say attached to Channel 31, should approach their local member, or maybe the council in tandem, maybe just to see who's giving grants and what they're for. So approach your local state member or federal member?
Both. I'll be applying to both, because federal government have a range of grants, state governments have a range of grants, and local councils have a range of grants. And just keep looking, because there's money out there. It's just an effort trying to find it, but once you find it where it is, it certainly can be really beneficial.
Well, what more information can you give the local people out there on maybe some of the projects that are coming up for the government at the moment?
Oh, well, look, certainly in the portfolio that I'm responsible for, we are delivering about $1.2 billion in funding for training, and that's training anyone that leaves school and accesses any sort of training that leads up to university. And that's delivering about 650,000 enrolments around the state. And so that's people who study in places like where we are today, neighbourhood houses, people who study in TAFEs, people who study through private providers or through some of the dual sector universities. And it's really important that we provide every opportunity possible for people in this region to get as much training as they can, but also to ensure that training is training them in an area which ultimately leads to a job. And so that's where I'm focused on, and that's where we as a government are focused on. And what we want to do is provide every opportunity to groups like Kunara to do what they can to train the workforce of the future. Yeah. And congratulations to your team, and look forward to meeting you again in the future.
Okay, thanks very much. I've been talking to Nick Wakeling. He's the Minister for Higher Education and Skills and the member for Knox or Upper Ferntree Gully, for Ferntree Gully in the state government. You've been watching Eastern Newsbeat, brought to you by Era TV.
Thanks for coming, everyone. I'd just like to introduce Minister Nick Wakeling, Minister for Higher Education and Skills, who's come today to demonstrate with him.
Normally it's a great opportunity very much, and to the committee and members here, to Mark Ursher and community representatives. I'm very pleased to be here, not just as Minister, but also as a local member in the Knox community. I had the great pleasure to announce the sixth round of our current grants, and these grants, of which there are 37 recipients, will be sharing in nearly $2.5 million in funding. They are provided to a range of neighbourhood houses and other Learn Locals that are doing great work in facilitating training opportunities for Victorians, particularly vulnerable Victorians, and that's the reason why you all do this. And the model that's going to be launched here is an opportunity for video-based delivery of training to multi-sites, which is particularly going to connect students in regional Victoria with metropolitan Victoria. Particularly I'd like to pay credit to Leanne and her team who've led this campaign to try to get some funding for this very important cause. So I'm very pleased to announce today that as one of the 37 grants that I'll be announcing, that we're going to be announcing that $149,900 is going to be provided to this important program because we know that you're going to do great things. I've told other people that I'm coming to Kunara and they said you're leaders in the community with respect to the Learn Local sector. So I'm here to make a very special presentation to present this certificate, which is just a small way of acknowledging today's event, but more importantly, I'm really looking forward to coming back and hearing the great work of how you've actually gone with this very, hopefully, significant funding announcement. So congratulations, Leanne. Well done to all involved.